Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jessica Flynn and I am the owner and maker of Flynn Sisters Boutique. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how to create a crescent moon shaped epoxy resin cutting board. These are so fun and unique and they make fantastic gifts. And the color combinations that you can use are just endless. I'm going to have all the products that you see in this video listed and linked down below in the description box. You might even find some discount codes for you there as well. So that's enough chit chat for me. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we are starting with a board. This is just a cutting board that I had gotten from Fred Meyer last Christmas. And we're gonna start by prepping our board. So take off any like tags or stickers or anything like that. And then I'm gonna lightly sand the surface of my board. To do this, I'm just gonna use a 220 grit sanding block, and you can sand this whole board. Don't worry about it. We're not gonna mess up the finish, okay? The reason I'm gonna sand the whole board is it's gonna help me keep any masking off, masking adhered to the board. Okay, and then we're just gonna clean this up with some rubbing alcohol and some paper towels. Okay, and then I'm going to completely mask off the back of our board. Okay, then we're gonna really smooth that tape down, especially around our edges. I'm not so worried about this side because I'm only going to be epoxying this side. So then we want to really trim off the edge of this tape here as close to the board as we can possibly get. And again, I'm not worried about this side because I'm not going to be putting any epoxy on this side. Next, we're going to be masking off our moon shape. I'm going to be doing that with vinyl, so I'm going to cut that with my Cricut and I'll be right back. So this vinyl is just a circle that I cut in Cricut Design Space using the shapes feature, and I sized that circle to be the same height as my board here, which is about 10.5 inches, and I think that's exactly what I sized this circle to be. Once I've got that cut out of my vinyl, I'm going to cut the excess backing paper off with just a pair of scissors here. And then once we've got that all trimmed up, I'm gonna position it against the board approximately like where I would want my moon to start, or how big I want my moon to be. So obviously the further down the board we move it, the thicker the moon would be. And to really center that, I'm gonna try and find the center point of my board based on that little hole there at the handle. Fold my circle in half and try to use that line to kind of line everything up right through the center of the board. Once I've got it positioned how I want, I'm going to use a small piece of painter's tape to kind of anchor it down on one side just so it doesn't shift around. I really want to get the shape and size of my moon right before I lay this. So we're just going to anchor that one side down. All right, and then we're going to lift the backing paper up from that right side there Just lifting it up enough to expose a small section of that vinyl. And we're going to attach that first, making sure we got everything nice and smooth, no wrinkles, okay? I've got my vinyl scraper here to help me out. And then we'll just slowly apply the remainder of our vinyl circle there, leaving that paper backing on as we go. Okay, and then just smooth that out really well. Make sure we have really nice adhesion there so we don't have any leaks coming through at that line against the moon. And then I'm going to use just a craft knife to trim off all the excess vinyl up around and by the handle there. Then I'm also going to mask off all the sides, being careful to get a nice straight line against the top and bottom points of my moon. So you'll see where there's the top and bottom point of my moon, I'm going to trim that tape so the line is nice and straight, because that edge of my board will be exposed as part of the pour that we're doing for this moon, okay? Once we get that tape applied, you want to just trim off or fold over any kind of excess and really press it down firmly, again, so we don't get any kind of leaks. Now that I have everything nicely masked off, I'm going to paint our moon with some black acrylic paint from Arteza. I really love this black acrylic paint because the coverage on it is so amazing. You can see that we really do get one coat coverage with this stuff. All right, and we want to do a nice thin coat of paint, just enough to really get dark, bold color. And I'm going to set this aside to dry for a couple hours. You want to make sure that this paint is completely dry to the touch before we start on our pour. All right, and then once our paint's dry, I'm ready to start on my resin pour. I've got an old baking sheet here that I've dedicated just to these types of projects, and I've got some solo cups to raise the board up away from the tray here so we don't make the back all messy. And I've got 120 milliliters of epoxy already mixed. I'm just using Alumilite's Amazing Clear Cast. It's by far my favorite epoxy. I have a link down below in the description box where you can get your own, along with a 10% off discount code. I probably won't use all of this epoxy that I've mixed, but anytime I'm doing a pour like this, I always like to have more than enough just in case. I'm going to start by taking my butter spreader and spreading just a small amount of the resin through the center of my moon. This is going to be what I use to adhere and arrange the glass shards that I'm going to use as part of this moon design. So these mirrored glass shards I got from Amazon. You get a whole jar of them for pretty inexpensive. I will link them in the description box. And you're just going to sprinkle these onto that section there by hand. All right, and once I've got my glass shards kind of placed how I want, I'm going to remove any excess glass shards or any stray ones, kind of just clean everything up with my tweezers there. And then I'm ready to start pouring some of my mixed colors. I meant to mix all my mica colors with my epoxy ahead of time, but I wasn't sure exactly what colors I wanted to use. This was kind of more of a see as I go kind of deal. So anyway, so the first color I'm going to pour here is Mega Lilac from Simply Sarah's Custom Creations. It's a really pretty like white mica powder that shifts purple, and it's really beautiful against dark colors. And I'm going to pour that through the glass shards. I want those glass shards to almost have like an iridescent look to them. So I just sort of let my heart guide me as far as where I was going to pour that. And after I poured that first color through the glass shards, I also sprinkled in some glitter from Peachy Olive Glitters. This is a beautiful white iridescent mix called Pure, and I will list it down below in the description box as well. All right, and once I kind of had that center of my moon dialed in, from there I sort of just poured different colors that I thought would look good together. So I have really deep like purple, almost a burgundy or maroon, called Beatrix, I think. And then also this really pretty like shifty blue. I also have some black glitter called OBX mixed in with my epoxy as well. I kind of poured that through. And you guys, don't worry, I'm going to have every single one of these epoxy additives and colors listed in the description box. Okay. And once I got most of my like additives and mixed in glitter epoxy poured, I took some of the remainder of the epoxy that I had in my cup and I poured in a few drops of black epoxy dye from Alumilite and just sort of filled in any areas. This is also going to help give me like depth and dimension once we apply some heat, because the micas and everything are going to mix in with this black epoxy dye to make some pretty magical things happen. I just love to do these. All right. And so yeah, once I get all my additives poured, I think I really only used, let's see, I only used a few different additives: the burgundy, the shifty purple blue, the mega lilac, the OBX glitter. Okay. Once I got all of those poured onto my piece, I was ready to start applying heat with my heat gun. I've got a focused nozzle at the end of my heat gun to really help me direct the flow of air so I can really control where things are kind of moving around. After I applied my heat gun and kind of like bloomed out all of those different mica colors and blended them how I wanted to, I started to like really lightly draw in my gold mica powder at the very end. The reason I didn't want to do the gold as a pour is I didn't want it to overtake the other colors, and I really wanted this to be kind of a more subtle accent. So after I applied the heat, I drew in little veins of this gold, and I did apply a little bit of heat just to get a more organic feel on the lines of that gold. I feel like in hindsight, if I were to do this again, I wouldn't have added in that shifty blue that I have there. I just didn't feel like it vibed very well with the gold, but I still think it's really pretty. The biggest impact on this piece was definitely the glitter that I had sprinkled into my glass shards. It just adds so much sparkle and whimsy to this piece. I absolutely loved it. All right, you guys, so once I've got that looking how I wanted, I did kind of add in a little more glass shards, added in a little more glitter, and a little bit more of that mega lilac mica powder. Don't be afraid to add in additional stuff, you know, once you're done if you see anything that looks a little off. And also run some colored epoxy around the edge of your piece to make sure that you got full coverage around the edge. You don't have to cover the edge if you don't want to. I just like the look of it falling over the whole edge of my piece. All right, so once we got everything poured on there and we're looking good, I used a silicone brush to remove any of the excess epoxy from the edge of my vinyl. The key to this, the key to success with this particular kind of pour, where we have it like masked off in a very detailed shape like this moon, is making sure that the pour isn't too thick around the area that we have masked off. So you really do want to take your time, make sure you get all of that excess epoxy off the edge of that orange vinyl there, okay? And also wipe off any of the excess that has dripped along the bottom, okay? All that stuff along the bottom is fine. We just don't want to make sure we don't have an excess of drips down there. Once I was done with all that, I set a timer on my phone for about an hour and a half, and then I came back before my epoxy was fully dry, just to the point where it was sturdy enough to like not pour off the board when I was messing with it. I came back and removed that orange vinyl. You don't want your epoxy to fully cure up against the edge of that vinyl. If you accidentally forget it, it's okay. It probably will come up just fine, but you're gonna get a much cleaner line if we do this after about 1.5 to 2 hours. I'm gonna let that sit and dry some more in a nice, warm, safe even space. It has to be level. Don't forget to put your piece on a level surface to dry, okay? After about 8 to 12 hours, I was ready to move on to the next step. My next step is to again mask my moon off. This time I'm just going to use blue painter's tape, cut along the edge there with my craft knife to fully expose my moon, but we want to get that masking line as close to the moon as possible. What I'm doing now is applying a second coat of just clear epoxy resin. This is going to really seal in everything that we created here, and it's going to make the surface of our cutting board really food safe. Alumilite is FDA compliant in that it is safe for food contact. I don't know if I would eat a whole meal off of it, but it is safe to serve food off of this cutting board in close proximity or even in contact with the resin side of our piece here. Okay, so that's totally fine. You just want to make sure that you do seal in all of those epoxy additives with this clear layer. Once I get that layer applied, I'm going to hit it with my torch to pop any bubbles. Then I'm going to set a timer on my phone to come back after an hour, and I'm going to pull the tape. The reason I waited less time is because I do want some of that excess clear epoxy to come down a bit off the edge to really seal everything, and it's going to pour over just slightly at that point, and that's really what we want. All right, again, I'm going to let my piece dry for a solid 24 hours now before we move on to the next step, which is just to carefully remove all that masking tape. If you have any stubborn areas, quick hit with a heat gun will help lift that tape and peel away from the edge of your resin. After I got everything cleaned up, I went over it with my tack cloth, and now I'm going to shine back my wood with this butcher block oil. You can find this butcher block oil at Lowe's or Home Depot, or you can even get like walrus oil or something on Amazon. I will have links down below on what you can use. And I'm just using a clean paper towel, and I'm going to rub the oil into all the surfaces of my board. You just want to make sure that you don't use an excessive amount of oil. You just kind of want to rub it in like lotion, okay? Obviously, you don't want to put a bunch of oil over your resin side because it does not need it. We just want to restore the shine and finish of that wood. If you find that parts of your piece feel like a little bit rough or that they need to be smoothed out after the sanding that we did initially with our prep work, you can go over everything with 00 steel wool and just kind of rub that over the wood on your piece to really smooth it out. And then we'll clean that up with some tack cloth and go in for a second coat with the butcher block oil. I would recommend letting that oil really soak into the wood for a full 24 hours before you use your piece or give it as a gift. But that's it. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Again, I really love the fun and unique look of this design. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and if you liked my video, please be sure to give us a big thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel because I upload new videos every Wednesday and Saturday. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. And a big thank you to all of our Flynn Sisters exclusive members. Thank you for your pledge. Your support means the world to our channel. If you love this video, you could check out our last video here. Also be sure to find us on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and of course subscribe for all our new videos that come out every Wednesday and Saturday. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon.